are all looking for adventure. We are all looking for adventure.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Marriage Adventure Podcast. We're your hosts, Daniel and Bonnie Hoover. And today we're going to talk about something that I know none of you struggle with at all. It's only Bonnie.
Hey, it's only us. Yeah, okay. So, yep. Okay, we're talking about expressing your needs without sounding critical.
Oh, you're probably better at that than I am. I'm sure you are. You know, most of us don't struggle to have needs. We got needs.
Yeah.
We all have needs. We just struggle to talk about them, and if we don't struggle to talk about them, we struggle to talk about them in a way that is productive, that our spouse can actually hear.
Mm-hmm. If we're honest, sometimes we try to say what we need, and it turns into those tense, defensive moments, and sometimes it even leads to an argument, and you're just trying to express a need.
Yeah. So what started out as, I just want to feel closer to you, somehow comes out sounding like criticism, right? And instead of connection. So we end up with distance instead of feeling more connected.
So if you've ever thought, why is this so hard, or why does my spouse get defensive when I'm just trying to be honest? Well, this episode's for you.
Yep. So today we want to talk about why expressing needs feels so risky in marriage and what's really happening kind of underneath that surface, and then how to begin expressing what you need in a healthier, more Christ-centered way.
Hey, that's pretty awesome. I mean,
Yep.
I'm going to lean in and listen a little bit here. Not perfectly. We're just trying to figure out how to do it more lovingly, right?
Yep. So it's cold out, so grab a cup of coffee, hot chocolate, take us on a walk or a drive, and let's talk about it for a little bit. So here's the question, Mon. We all have needs. That's right off the bat. We all have things that we want our spouse to know or do better, that we want more of in the relationship, or we want less of in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's not the question. The question is, why don't we express them, or why does it feel risky to express our needs to our spouse?
Now we're opening up a whole,
Can
a can of worms, and because there are a lot of different reasons that different people with different personalities it feels risky to do that. And I think right off the bat, and I'm probably the worst at it, is that fear of a reaction or of conflict. It's like a lot of people just don't want to go there because they're like, yeah, I don't have the emotional capacity to dig into this with the conflict just makes me tense and nervous, and I'd rather just like sweep it under the rug than have to face conflict. It's just kind of fear.
Yeah, so if you're conflict avoidant, then that's understandable. But even if you're not, maybe your past conversations kind of shape the present avoidance,
Yeah, maybe we've been there, done that before.
And
this is not going to go well.
Did not work well.
Yeah.
Right. So staying upset can kind of feel safer.
Yeah.
Than being vulnerable and being
until it's
forthright.
not. Yep. For a while. Well, most couples aren't really bad at communicating. They're kind of guarded in it. They want to talk, but and honestly, when it comes down to it, there are a lot of times that if there's something that's a conflict that I see coming, there are times that it's not so much even that I'm trying to get my way in something, but I don't want to hurt you in how I say it, so I'm very careful and guarded in it. Not even just because I don't want conflict, but I don't want to do it in a way that's misrepresented or hurtful to you.
That's very nice of you.
Well,
but
thanks.
if it goes on for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
then the problem is, one is the issue doesn't ever stop, or it never gets resolved, which can lead to what?
Well, resentment and starting to feel like, the longer you don't talk about something, and if it is a real issue, there's some things you can just die to, but the longer you sit on something and you don't confront it, it just builds. And then you start getting more angry about it, and then that can turn to some bitterness and resentment if you're not careful. And we've all been there.
Yep. And so in our last episode of the podcast, we talked a little bit about Galatians 5, the flesh versus the spirit, right? Mm-hmm. Feeding the flesh versus walking in the spirit. And so I want to kind of revisit that for a second, because that's a good way to frame this whole conversation. So walking in the spirit is walking with Jesus, abiding in Jesus, his life being reproduced in you. And he
And
said
through
that,
you.
and through you, yep. And he said that you'll bear much fruit. And the fruit, if you think about fruit, it's just the life of the vine being pressed out through the branch. So when we walk in the Spirit and he produces the fruit of the Spirit in it, it's just his life being pressed out through us. And what can be better for our marriage?
Yep.
You know, who can love my spouse? Who can love you better than me? Jesus. Right. So that's walking in the Spirit. But when we're walking according to the flesh, and you're either doing one or the other, there's no third option there, then your flesh wants to be felt. And what is walking according to the flesh? That's when we're not walking according to the Spirit, but we're trying to meet all our needs ourselves apart from the Spirit of God. And the flesh, it protects, it keeps score, it wants to feel justified. The flesh kind of likes, and we said this on the last episode, the flesh kind of likes being upset, kind of likes being hurt.
Playing the victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something to remember as we go into today's conversation. If you're like us and most people, you're always on your phone scrolling reels and stories. Well, instead of just mindlessly doom scrolling, check out our weekly marriage coaching. Every Monday afternoon, we drop a new, short marriage coaching video on YouTube. These concise tips and biblical insights will help you reconnect with Christ and your spouse all week long. Well, if you're loving this podcast, you'll love these bite-sized practical videos. So look up The Marriage Adventure on YouTube and give your marriage 10 minutes this Monday. I guarantee you'll feel the difference. All right, so we're talking about how to express needs without sounding critical. And so we've already established the fact we all have needs. We all have things that we want more of or less of in the relationship. And some people are not afraid to express that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's called nagging. Sometimes that's called a temper, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just express them in a wrong way. And sometimes, you know, with men, it's called exasperating your children or exasperating your spouse. You know, you put the bar so high and you're not really translating that need well.
Mm-hmm.
And so why, let's talk about first, why does our spouse have a hard time hearing us when we try to communicate our needs?
Well, I'm not going to say always, and I'm not going to like blanket statement, but I would say that a large percentage of the time, it's not what we're saying, but it's how we're saying it. I think it's the approach we're taking. It's the whole, my grandma would say you can catch more flies, you know, with honey.
Yeah.
And
The vinegar.
than with vinegar. And there's a lot of time we come in with such bitter speech that there's nothing. I mean, they don't, you can't hear anything because it's just too loud or too accusatory or too, there are a lot of reasons. I think a lot of times it's not that we're not expressing what we're feeling, it's how we're expressing it.
So we use a tone and a volume that kind of puts up a defensive wall.
Yeah.
Sometimes as soon as we start talking.
Yeah, our hearts are already walled off because
we go into that, protect mode.
And I mean, that's just human nature to want to protect. It's kind of that fight or flight thing.
Yeah.
That, all right, you coming at me. Well, I'm either I'm gonna shut down and run away, or I'm gonna, put up my fist and start fighting back, because either way, it's a protection mode in us that we get defensive and we just want to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and when I work with couples in intensives, there's a lot of guys that what gets uncovered in the intensive is that the guy has an edge about him that he doesn't realize. And guys, we can do that. Now it's not just us, right? Ladies can have that too, but
it gets called something different.
we can't use that language on a family podcast. But there's an edge, guys, that sometimes we'll bring to the table, or maybe our personality has it. and some guys will call it passion.
Oh,
I'm just
passionate about
I'm
it.
just it's just a little passion coming out. Well, it's not passion. You're really just being a butthole, right? You just kind of you need to, and sometimes we don't hear, how we are, and so what to us is we're speaking at a 3 out of 10. To our wife or to our kids, it's like an 8 or 9 out of 10, and so it's a lot louder, a lot more edgy, and so to achieve the right tone or the right volume, we got to pull it back way more than we think we should, and so sometimes it's tone, volume, edge.
Well, it doesn't even. It doesn't. I know it doesn't feel fair. We've talked about this before. That it doesn't feel fair that sometimes the man's that you can't get away with the same edge that I can. It doesn't seem fair, and we've talked about that before. But it was funny. I was talking to somebody I was out with Josie somewhere the other day, and we were talking about how she said that when that I'm usually pretty calm most of the time. She said, but when Mama starts yelling, we get scared. Apparently when I get loud, they get scared. But they said, but when Daddy gets really quiet, they get scared. I don't know what that is, but there's something that's like, there is something. They hear me. I'm kind of probably that little chihuahua they hear yapping all day long, just a little annoyance, and there's something more grizzly bear about a man.
Well, and sometimes it's darned if you do and darned if you don't, right?
Yeah.
So what I've worked to try to pull back that edge from maybe when they were younger and that real passionate volume and kind of getting on to them, that now when I'm quiet, the other end of that pendulum, it's bad. Right?
I know. Darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Darn. And
Daddy.
so I know. And so tone, volume, timing.
Yeah.
Timing could be one thing you're doing wrong when you're trying to express some needs.
I mean, there's certain things sometimes you can't hear somebody if you're in the middle of something or if you're not in a place where you can hear. And we pick those little battles sometimes on the wrong battlefield.
We pick it when it's good for us or when we're passionate about it or when they've upset us.
Yeah.
But that's not the best probably time to do it.
Or if it feels like we got the upper hand and we might could hold it against them if they're distracted and not really engaged with us, we can throw that at them.
Yeah, I remember back this was years ago, 9/11, right? So 9/11 happens, and most Americans wanted to respond right away and react. And I remember the administration. It was months and months and months later, and it was very measured, and it was very,
calculated.
Very calculated and all. And of course, we're not talking about wartime here. But what we are talking about is sometimes it's when you get upset with your spouse or something, when they're not meeting a need or they're doing something that that's not helpful to you. We want to just respond right then.
Or react.
Or react right then, yeah. But it's not going to be said in a way that's going to be able to be heard, maybe our tone or volume. And it's not the right timing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we need to just wait, sit on it. It's always good to pause and pray, which is a great episode of the podcast you can go back and listen to, and allow the Lord to work on our heart before we sit. And then sometimes you might want to make an appointment.
Yeah.
If it's something that's important, say, hey, I want to talk to you about something, but I know it's crazy now. Can we do that after the kids go to bed tonight?
Yeah.
Something like that. And it lets them know, oh, this is
serious enough. We need to talk about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about that in a little bit when I've had some time to sit on that and think on it.
Yeah, and I think maybe another reason our spouse might have a hard time is the language we use. And I'm not talking about cuss words. Well, sometimes maybe that too. But we use like you always. We overgeneralize things. Like you always do this. And really always, like nothing happens 100% of the time. Certainly they get it right, every blue moon.
And that's definitely going to put you on the defense. The second you hear that always or never, it seems to be a trigger word that puts up walls.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what you don't want to do.
Right.
So I think that's why sometimes our message isn't communicated well. But I think here's an important thing that we need to do that really, I'll never forget when we first came upon this, you actually came upon it, it was really, really powerful. And that is identifying the base need.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times the thing that is the most frustrating on the surface
Mm-hmm.
isn't really the thing underneath that we really want solved.
Mm-hmm. I go to a neuromuscular therapist that like will work on different stuff.
He's a wizard.
I know he is, but it's like I'll go in and I'll say, "Oh man, I've got this pain on my shin," and he starts working on the opposite side of my body and starts working. I'm like, "What? Wait, no, He said, "Yes, where your pain is not where the problem is."
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, oh, you've got to get to the root of that and find the base thing that to get to it, and that's so true in these conflicts most of the time. What the pain that's being expressed, the irritation, and the way we're erupting about one thing is usually not that thing.
It's something else. Yeah, I remember one time you went to him and you had a pain kind of on your backside there, and he started working on me. And I went, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Well, you're the pain in her butt." So
Sure. Yeah.
but that's so true that sometimes the thing that frustrates us really, it's a surface issue.
Yeah.
It's not the real issue. And so sometimes we express the aggravation, but we really need to understand the underlying need and then express that. So I remember years ago, the kids were little. You had just stayed home, right? So you had left the job and you were at home full time, and you wanted to have dinner every night at 5:30. And so this was back before we could track on our cell phones, and you said, "Hey, call me when you leave the office. It's a 30-minute drive. My meals are 30 minutes. I can have dinner on the table ready to go when you get here." And so for one reason or another, I'd always forget to call, or someone would call me,
Don't
or
say
I'd
always.
have to a lot of the times. And so, or I'd get on a phone call when I get in the car, whatever the reason. I'd walk in and you're like, "You didn't text me. You didn't call me.
Dinner's not ready. Well, now I got 30 minutes to get it ready."
And for me, it was like, okay, we can wait. It's not a big deal. But for you, it was a big deal. And I'll never forget that became a big argument.
Yeah.
Like, you were really frustrated, mad. I didn't see the big deal in it, which I should have because it's important to you. And so I'll never forget the day I came home and I walked on the back porch and you're sitting there on the swing with your Bible in hand, and you said, "Okay, sit down. I think I've found out something." I said, "What?" And you said, "I think I know why this dinner thing bothers me so much." And you said, "Because I just left my job to where I loved my job at the church, and I had control over things, and I knew what I was supposed to do, and I had a regimen, and now I step into this world at home. Kids are crazy. Kids are little. I have nothing that I can really control in the day. And dinner was very important to me because it was one unifying thing that we could do as a family that I knew I could kind of control." And that's why it really upsets me. And I'll never forget, for me, it was like, wow, okay, I shouldn't have taken this, but I get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it felt, I remember thinking, at the core of it, I felt disrespected.
Yeah.
Or just overlooked.
Yeah.
And it was that was like, and when I was able to, first of all, it took a lot of digging and a lot of searching scripture and asking myself a lot of questions to figure out, why does this bother me so much? Why am I so triggered by this? And why am I causing this time of day that I wanted to be so peaceful for our family? Why am I erupting and ruining it? And that's when the Holy Spirit had room I was self-aware enough to start digging and figuring out, okay, this is the root of it. And it changed everything.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's good a lot of times to not react in the moment, but sit in the presence of the Lord and respond to allow him to show you that underlying need. And so, so here's some examples. So you might say, like, put the phones down, right? When the real need is you really want connection.
Yeah.
But the phone is the thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably 5 other things that's
Exactly.
not
But
lending
it's
to
triggering.
connection.
Yes.
But or you could say, something like, you never want sex anymore. when really the deeper need is you want to be physically close,
Mm-hmm.
to your spouse. And so identify that base need.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important.
But then I think once you've identified it, that might be one of the hardest things is actually identifying what the real need is there. But then once you have, this is also pretty hard, and it's being vulnerable with it, because vulnerability is what really invites the connection in your relationship. And that's what you're really after in that. But, when you speak from aggravation, then, and your spouse is, they're just hearing criticism at that point.
Yeah. And then you get defensive.
And then you get defensive and the walls go up. But when you're speaking about need, I'll never forget that conversation. It was a night and day different, because you heard my heart. I
Yeah.
was vulnerable of saying, I feel out of control here and I feel disrespected. And you're like, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. You just needed to hear my vulnerability and my heart in it.
And it didn't stop you from saying something very poignant and that could have been hurtful to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was done in a way that was, vulnerability leads to connection.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of the things. Safety and vulnerability leads to intimacy, and man, it really helps.
Yeah.
And so that invites connection. But if you don't slow down long enough to identify your base need, then your spouse is never really going to have a fair chance to respond well.
No, and then we just get in the cycle and the dance of we just get, and you know what we're talking about. You all have that one or two things that this is going to be a conversation repeatedly or an argument repeatedly, and you bristle immediately every time it comes up. And I think part of it's being willing to be vulnerable, but then just kind of getting some clarity over what's going on before you have that conversation. Okay, here's the base need. I need to ask the Holy Spirit to help me be vulnerable in this, and for my spouse to be receptive, and then clarify what's going on.
Yeah. And so once you get clarity before you have the conversation, here's some tips on having the conversation. First, you set the context, and it's always good to use a soft startup when having a hard conversation. So what is a soft startup? Well, we can really ambush important conversations by how we start it. And so, you can start a conversation really poorly by your tone, your edge, your volume, and by saying, well, every time I do this, you do this, and you just don't get right. That's not going to be a good way to start out the conversation, and you ambush it. So you want to invite them into the conversation. So that's a harsh startup.
Yeah.
A hard startup. What's a soft startup?
It's more of a, hey, I've really been wrestling with something, and I would love for us to talk about it. God's just been showing me this thing, and I'm struggling to be able to talk to you about it. So I need your help with this.
Yeah. And help infers partnership.
Yeah.
So I need you to engage with me on this, and that's connection. There's another thing about a soft startup that's really hard for the flesh, because the flesh does not do this. Matter of fact, when I say this, some of you might bristle a little bit and be like, yeah, I don't know. It's always good, if you can, to start with some sort of apology. Because there's always something on our end that we can own.
Yeah.
And it might just simply be how you reacted the last time, right? But when you can own your stuff and be vulnerable and be self-aware, then it helps your spouse do the same.
It's like if I'm seeing you take a step toward me and say, hey, I know I handled this thing wrongly.
Yeah.
It pulls my walls down to make me want to reciprocate that.
Yeah. So a great example of a soft startup, kind of taking what you said and then building on that. Like, so hey, there's something that I've been noticing, and it's been bothering me. I want to apologize for how our last conversation went. I didn't handle it well, and I want to handle it better. So I was going to see if you can help me in this, right?
Yeah.
So that right there, you're not taking ownership for what your spouse did.
No.
You're just taking ownership that you
Your
didn't handle
reaction.
that conversation well,
Mm-hmm.
and so that, man, that just opens up the opportunity to really be able to solve this thing well.
Yep. Well, and another thing to think about when you're in this conversation is being clear with what you're bringing to the conversation, because clarity really is being kind. I mean, you're doing it in a nice way, but I think there are a lot of times we dance around stuff because we don't want conflict.
Yeah.
And vague needs really are just frustrating. It's like, I can't read your mind. I don't know what you're saying here. Can you explain this? And
And when you're vague, you're sitting down having this seemingly important conversation. It's something that is worth you starting with a soft startup and something really bothered me. But then when you pull back and you're vague, it leaves the person thinking either, I didn't understand that, or it leaves them thinking, I don't know what the big deal is.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful either, you know. So you really want to be clear. Clear requests, they help your spouse succeed.
Yeah.
Right? They help them understand, especially for guys. And most guys are like, can you just write it on a sticky note?
Can you just tell me what I did wrong? I don't know.
Just tell me.
And I can fix it.
I can do it. But you want to be kind in the way that you're clear.
Well, and I think there's sometimes that, and I'll say this, women are pretty bad. Women can be very frustrating, I'm sure, in the fact that when we're trying to explain something, it's like, I don't want to have to tell you that. You should just know. If I tell you, it wasn't your idea to fix it. But that's not really fair.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. Ladies, just tell them.
Yeah.
Just tell them in a loving way.
Because for the most part, men are fixers, and they want to figure. You know, like, you tell me if you're not doing it in a nagging, bossy way, but you're expressing your need in this,
right?
Then it's received much better. But it's like, I don't know. Just tell me. I don't know why you're so mad at me all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did.
So last week we sat down to record this episode of the podcast.
Uh-oh.
And we're
Are you
sorry,
going there?
this is off script. So we were looking over our, we have an outline that we, kind of sparks our thoughts as we're talking. And so we were looking over the outline before we pressed record, and Bonnie said, speaking on this, and you told me about, an instance where a couple weeks ago, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I just had a bad moment, bad day. I was kind of in a pissy mood, or whatever. And as we said, when Dad gets a pissy mood, the whole family feels it 100 times more than he thinks, about it or thinks they do. And so anyway, you very clearly, and you're getting this funny look on your face.
I know, sorry.
I
didn't know you were going to talk about this.
But you very clearly stated what happened and the need and made me aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Now, I did not feel like recording the podcast then. I was like, I just can't do this right now. Let's just take
two.
Take two. So that's why we're recording it today. But it was, it was a great conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it led to some good stuff.
Yeah, but I'm non-confrontational. It took me 3 weeks to even say it because I didn't want conflict.
Yeah, and listen, nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff. Who does, right?
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's marriage. We should. At the end of the day, and I tell this to couples all the time, we are adults, and we need to be able to have adult conversations and not get our panties in a wad.
Yeah.
Right? And not getting in a tizzy. We need to be able to have our spouse lovingly look at us and say something that's not lovely.
Yeah.
And us be an adult and say, okay.
Yeah, I can own that.
I can own that, especially if it's not done with blaming and control and vitriol and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a very simple tool that I want to tell everybody about, and it's free. Matter of fact, I'm going to include it in the show notes below.
Yeah.
It's called the Talker Listener Card.
Game changer.
It is a game changer, and so we give it to couples all the time, and because when we talk, especially about hard things, a lot of times we interrupt, and when we interrupt, we start splintering into other issues, and we never get back to the main issue, and it's very hurtful. And then when you interrupt me, it feels invalidating to me, and like I'm not that important, and I get my train of thought off. So it's a very simple card. It has one side that says talker with a couple little rules, and the other side says listener with a couple little rules, and you just fold it like a little tent, and you put it in between you.
Yep.
And when you're ready to talk, the person who owns the problem, like you got an issue, like, like our conversation last week was your issue with me. So you're the talker first, and you follow the rules and you talk, and I kind of follow the listening rules, which biggest thing is I'm not interrupting. I'm receiving information, right?
Yep.
Not getting defensive. Just want to learn, want to understand what's up. And then when you're done, you flip the card, and now I get to talk, and you get to listen. And man, it is so stupid how simple this little tool is.
It's like an invisible counselor sitting there between you to kind of referee.
And I have had more couples say, that dumb little card has helped us so much.
Yeah.
Because you get to talk in a manner that is adult, right? Adult-like, and you're not interrupting. And the person that's listening is like, yeah, that was awesome. I got all the information, and, and the person talking's like, that was awesome. I had clarity of thought. I could get my thoughts out and all that.
Yeah.
And it slows the pace.
Yeah.
And so it is so, so good. Such a great tool.
Yep. So you're going to want to grab that from the show notes and use that when you get in those arguments, because it really is a great tool. And I've found that it's also, if you have a hard time expressing yourself, it's empowering.
It really is. Because
it allows you to say, okay, I know he's following the rules. He's just going to listen and not interrupt, and he's taking all this in, and it sets the serious tone of this of, okay, we're going to follow these rules, and now I feel safe to engage.
Yeah. So download that, print it off, use it.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing that we hope you guys hear today, it's this: you're not wrong for having needs. And that's okay.
Yeah, and struggling to express them doesn't mean your marriage is broken. It just means you're human, and you're.
We all do it,
right?
Yeah, and because expressing those needs well, it does not come natural to anybody. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice and grace and just a willingness to slow down and learn.
Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is not say it perfectly. It's just to pause before things get out of control in the conversation.
Yeah. The goal it's not better communication. It's protecting the connection God designed your marriage to have, right?
Well, thanks for joining us on the Marriage Adventure podcast, and make sure to like and subscribe.
That's right. We'll see you next time.
We are all